Hey, Adventure Alan here, and I'm super excited today to talk to you about the Backcountry Barista. We've adopted the 2016 World Championship pour-over competition. The technique and recipe used for that, we've adapted it to the Backcountry. It's super light, it's super easy to use, and it won't even cost you an arm and a leg. And the key to that is this little 2-ounce red filter cone dripper thing that we're going to talk to you about in more detail. But without a lot more delay, it's going to be easier for us to show you how to do this in the Adventure Alan test kitchen. So we're going to take a break, and I will meet you back at the Adventure Alan test kitchen. Okay, Adventure Alan here, and we are in the Adventure Alan test kitchen. Yeah, well, it's my kitchen, but it's also the test kitchen. And we are excited to talk to you about Backcountry Barista. We have adopted the winning recipe from the 2016 Brewers Cup World Championship. That's Tetsu Kaysuya's 4 to 6 pour over coffee recipe. We've adopted that to the Backcountry, so now it's going to be relatively easy for you to make a boutique barista style coffee shop coffee in the Backcountry, every bit as good, and we're going to show you how to do that. In addition to anything that you would probably not normally own, it would be this 2-ounce dripper cone, this Hario V60, and a 1.3 ounce mug. So for basically 3.5 ounces, I can make barista level coffee in the Backcountry. Okay, and again, we're going to sort of push back against the Starbucks via it's since its inception, it's sort of taken over Backcountry coffee, and all the conversations about coffee techniques sort of died when Via came on the scene. And not to diss Via too much, I mean, it is incredibly light, it's super easy to use, and the taste, it's okay. It's better than instant, but it is not a cup of coffee that you would get excited about, and life is just too short to not have a great cup of coffee in the Backcountry, especially when you've got a technique that's as light and as simple to use as what we're going to show you. So anyway, without further ado, let's move forward and show you the alternative to Via that we think you're going to be super excited about, and you may not take Via on your next trip with you. So the deal is, and what makes this work, is this Hario V60 coffee filter. It's the same filter that Tetsu, or it's a plastic version of the version that Tetsu used in the World Championship. And the plastic version has a few advantages. One is it's only 2 ounces, so it's way lighter. And actually the plastic is a little better insulator. So if it's cold in the Backcountry, it's going to keep your coffee a little hotter. But anyway, just a note, this is super easy. There's nothing complicated about this. To brew a 10-ounce cup of coffee, we're using 300 mLs of water, 20 grams of coffee, and we're sort of very carefully pouring that water over the coffee grounds over the course of 3 minutes. Basically just trying not to pour much over the initial bloom of the coffee, so not super complicated. So don't get super torqued out about the detail, but that's the basic thing, and if you do it like that, it's going to be a great cup of coffee. Okay, so let's quickly go through the gear and supplies that you would need to brew a fantastic cup of coffee in the Backcountry. And I'm going to run through this really quickly, but not to worry. If you look in the description section below this video, there's a link to our written post, which will contain all the details on the gear that I'm explaining. But first and foremost is this Hario V60 dripper filter. It is only 2 ounces. It only costs $7. It's probably the piece of gear that you do not own. We're also using a very lightweight titanium mug. You may already own one. But the thing that you're really going to need to make great coffee is obviously good coffee beans. So we are using a very high quality light roast coffee, and that coffee needs to be precisely ground. In order to do that, we're using this Baritza Encore coffee grinder. Again, a relatively low cost, high quality grinder. The setting that we are using on this one is 15, but you could get your coffee ground locally at your supermarket or have your local coffee shop coffee roaster grind the beans for you. A medium drip is about right. You likely own a stove already, but the stove that we really like is this Trail Designs Caldera with the Toaks 900 ml pot. It's an alcohol stove. It only weighs a little over 5 ounces. You could use this jet boil here. The jet boil is heavier but easier to use. We find it pot doesn't quite pour as well, but it'll do okay for the job. You also need some way to precisely measure water. And we've just taken this iced tea container and made markings with the water amounts that we're going to be using for brewing. I suggest you do something like that. You're also going to need a timer. Generally in the backcountry, I would use my iPhone, just a timer on my iPhone. But that pretty much covers everything that you're going to need. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump forward into actually brewing some backcountry coffee. We're going to execute the 4 to 6 pour over coffee recipe in the backcountry. And we're going to do as good a job in the backcountry as if you were in a boutique coffee shop or doing it very carefully in your own home. This recipe is to make a 10-ounce cup of coffee. And I'll go ahead and tell you what we need. First of all, we're going to need 300 mLs of water. I've got 12 ounces of water, which is a couple ounces more, but I'm going to use that to wet the filter paper and warm the dripper. And it'll also pre-warm my mug. And the other thing that we need is 20 grams of coffee. We prefer a light roast, and the ground is a medium drip. And we'll talk about that more in a second. Total time to brew is about 3 minutes in 5 separate pours. We'll go into that in more detail in a bit. But first of all, I just want to get my stove lit here and the water in the pot, and then I can talk about a couple things while we bring the water up to boil. So first of all, go ahead and pour my 12 ounces of water into here. Put the lid back on. Go ahead and light my alcohol stove here. Okay, that's lit. Put that on. Okay, so while that's coming to boil, first of all, a quick aside, we're using a 5.6 ounce alcohol stove system to boil this. It does a great job. You could use a jet boil. The jet boil is a little faster and a little easier to use, but the jet boil is 20 ounces or almost 4 times the weight by the time you add the fuel canister and everything on it. But let's go ahead and talk about the coffee we're using here. I said we prefer lighter roast coffee. This is a La Co-op. My friend Juan Luis, his family owns a coffee finca or farm in Guatemala, and it is a family-owned cooperative. The family and his brothers grow it in Guatemala in the cooperative, and it's shipped here to DC, and I pick it up freshly roasted. And again, we prefer a light roast, especially for the pour-over technique like this. So, all right, the water's close to boiling here, so we're going to go ahead and start working through this. Okay, so my stove just boiled here, so I'm going to take, I've got plenty of hot water, so I'm going to start executing this pour-over technique. Again, we're going to do 5 pours over the coffee grounds in the course of 3 minutes, and this 4 to 6 means that we're going to put 40% of our water in the first minute and a half, our first half of the brew cycle, and we're going to put 60% of our water in the second half of the brew cycle in our pours. Obviously, we don't have I have a scale here that's going to help me do that now. We don't have it in the backcountry, but I'm going to give you some visual clues on how we pour that water in. But let's go ahead and get started. So what I need here, first of all, is a filter, which I fold and put into this cone like this. Get a nice fit there. And then we're going to take some of the boiling water here, and we're going to pour just a little bit of it to rinse out the paper filter the cone and to just sort of pre-warm it a little bit. We'll let that drain out. And then we're going to get rid of that water. And then we're going to go ahead and take our bag of ground coffee and we're going to very carefully pour that into the filter cone here. Tap that out. And we're just going to go and tap the grounds a bit, level them out a bit. Now we're kind of ready to go. I'm gonna get ready to go here and start my timer. And I'm going to do my first pour here very gently, just trying to wet the grounds, not get too much coffee. I'm just going to pour up to this bloom here, right about there. You see, it's just sort of caressing that thing's called the bloom. Took me a little less than 15 seconds to get there. So I'm now watching this timer here. I'm going to wait about 45 seconds just to let this coffee saturate the bloom. Again, this gets some of the sweetness out of the coffee, these sort of restrained initial pours. Again, visually in the backcountry, you're going toward this bloom. And when I do this next pour at about 45 seconds, again, I'm not going to pour much higher than the grounds or the height of this bloom. Just very carefully, just gently pouring in here. Don't want to over pour. You can see it's blooming just a little bit more here. Just trying to keep up just with the top of that bloom there. Right about there. Don't want to pour much more than the top of that bloom. And again, this restrained initial pour for the first minute and a half brings out the sweetness in the coffee, and then I'll pour a little more water, just a little bit above the bloom for the next 3 pours, what's left in the pot. And again, this is just going to strengthen the coffee and bring out some more of the acidity and floral notes in it. But I'm ready to go now. I am going to start one of my last 3 pours here. And again, right now, I'm going to pour just a little bit over the top of the bloom, maybe 1/4 of an inch. You can see the water's flat on the top there. And again, it should drain out pretty well here by the time this is all said and done. Okay, we're now at about 2 minutes, and again, it's drained down. So this is going well. And now I'm going to go ahead and do another pour again. Again, I'm pouring just maybe 1/4 of an inch above the grounds there. There we go. Again, about 15 seconds to pour and about 15 seconds to drain on these final parts. And again, I wouldn't get too worried about this. I mean, if you do 5 pours in about 5 equal parts, you should be fine. I'm going to go ahead now and do my final pour here. Get the rest of that water in here. And there we go. Okay. And there we go. And that should drain through pretty nicely. And again, this is just adding some strength to the flavor of the coffee and getting a little bit of the acidity and complexity, some floral, citrusy notes to the end of it. But this should drain down in about around 3:30. This is actually doing pretty well. And at about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and again, if you don't have the timer like this, you can just use your iPhone. But around 3 minutes and 30 seconds, we should be done with this brew. You can see it's all drained out, and I can go ahead and pretty much take this off. And there you have it. This should be an absolutely perfect cup of coffee. Yeah, and it's nice. I'm getting some nice sweetness to start off with, but because we used a light roast coffee and we haven't overbrewed it, I'm getting some lighter, more floral, little bit of tanginess at the end of this. So that's a perfectly balanced. It's a perfectly balanced blend, and yeah, that's a wonderful cup of coffee, and it's still hot. Okay, so one other thing that is important for me to mention here is leave no trace. And given how concentrated people are camping and the greasing focus on leave no trace, this coffee has to go home with you. And one of the nice things about using a filter paper as opposed to a gold filter or boiling coffee in the pot is that the cleanup is super easy. You can get all my grounds out. You just keep a little coffee discard baggie, and I can just take this filter paper and pinch it together and pull it out of here and put it in that baggie and seal it, and voila, I have a nice perfectly clean coffee filter right here. Looks great. And I am being ethical in the leave no trace, and I'm bringing out the coffee that I brought with you. And no, it's not okay to pour it into the water or rinse it out in the creek or even scatter it in the camp. Maybe 20 or 30 years ago that was okay. But the current standard of leave no trace ethics is we take this out with us. So please go ahead and practice leave no trace. Okay, so as you can see, you can make a fabulous cup of coffee in the backcountry. It's light, it's simple, it's easy. We're done making this cup of coffee right now. All this delicious coffee in the filter there. This is a fantastic cup of coffee. It's beautiful and sweet to start off with, and then it finishes off with some nice floral notes. Perfectly balanced cup of coffee, and you can do this too. So hopefully you like this video. Go ahead and like it on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow the Adventure Alan channel. Go ahead and click that button for new content. We're going to have tons of great videos coming out. We'd like you to see them. And please check the comment section below. All the gear that we're using here is in the comment section below, as well as a link to our written post that discusses this technique and the gear. And until then, this is Adventure Alan signing out.